Well, it is here. Episode number 6 of the Snakes Are Us TV podcast. I'm Jason Clark, and this time we are talking about calls. Calls, what I mean by that is somebody calls me and says, hey, I have a problem, which usually involves a snake, alligator, some type of reptile issue. And, over the years of doing so many calls, some are just amazing. And I try to film as many of these as I can to put them on our YouTube channel. But then there's so many things that happen. So many calls that come in that we just can't film or, even if we film them all, I never get them all edited to get out there. So some really good calls I want to share with you guys today that I can't help but remember some of these. I was even talking to my family members, my mom, my daughters, about, asking them to remind me of some of their favorite calls. And so I've got a list of them here of some of the top ones over the last several years that are very memorable to me. So hopefully you guys will enjoy these. I've been answering snake calls since I was in middle school. 911 would call me to come out and remove snakes. Somebody had, and this surprises people because you get a snake in your house and you're thinking, why would I call 911 for that? Well, some people are so terrified of a snake, they pick up the phone because to them, this is a life or death emergency and 911 needs to be involved. So they call 911. This is not a rare thing. This is extremely common. And, 911 normally doesn't deal with snakes. Animal control, county by county may be different, but most of them don't really deal with snakes. At least they're not set up that way for the most part. Most of them deal with domestic animals. And when it comes to wildlife, you have to get somebody else to handle that. And that's where we come in and other people. But some animal control organizations handle that, but most of them do not. So, yes, we get 911 calls. Then people will call, from other ways too, or they'll email us or contact us, and we'll end up out somewhere trying to deal with their issue. Now, I'm going to go through several of these, but the kind of calls I'm talking about, what I mean is I got a call once. A woman saw a snake inside her house. Now, here in Georgia where I live, most of the time, I'd say 90% or greater, 95% of the time, if I get a snake call that is in reference to a snake inside someone's house, usually that's going to be a rat snake, normally, okay? Rat snakes are very good climbers, especially good at climbing structures, and end up in people's houses all the time. So I got a call one day from a woman who was very upset. Screaming on the phone, very upset. She had a snake in her kitchen, and she wasn't very far away from me. So I get to her house, and I get out of the truck, and I'm walking to her front door, right? And I get there, and I ring the doorbell, and nobody's coming to the doorbell. Nobody's answering. So I knock on the door, ring the doorbell, knock on the door, and then I can barely hear someone in the house, assuming they're trying to talk to me. They're yelling. And so I start listening, and they're saying, come in, open the door, come in. I'm like, I'm just walking to somebody's house and get shot, So I creak open the door. I said, hey, is this the snake house? Yes, come in. I'm in the kitchen. Come in the kitchen. So the lady has seen the snake in the kitchen, and she's still in the kitchen with the snake, apparently. So I walk in the kitchen, and it's actually a pretty big kitchen. There's a big island in the middle of the kitchen with a sink on the island there. And I walk in, and initially I don't see the woman. And I said, ma'am, I'm looking around. All of a sudden she goes, yes, sir, right here. I turn around. She's on top of the refrigerator. I'm not lying. She's on top of the refrigerator. And this is like a grandmother who couldn't have been more than 5'2", 5'3", tiny little lady. And she's an older lady, and she is sitting on top of her refrigerator. And so I just said, ma'am, I just have one question for you. how did you get on top of the refrigerator? Why are you on top of the refrigerator? She said, sir, I don't know. I saw a snake. Next thing I knew, I'm sitting on the refrigerator. This is where I landed when I jumped. And I said, look, I know this may offend you, but before I look for the snake, can I please take your picture of you on top of your refrigerator? And so I did, and she was fine with it. Anyway, so those are the kind of calls I'm talking about, where something happens and it's just out of the ordinary, unforgettable. And when it comes to someone being afraid of snakes and having a snake inside their home where they live, yeah, things like this can happen because it takes people off guard and really makes them do things they would not normally do. And another really short story, real quick. A lady calls and she's like screaming on the phone again, and a different lady this time, and she's very upset. And I'm trying to get her to calm down, and all I keep hearing her say is there's a cheater in her backyard, a cheater. I said, ma'am, I don't understand. A cheater? She said, yes, it's a cheater. I said, is it your husband? Because she's called 911, right? So I don't know, maybe 911 has gotten, transferred the wrong call to me. Maybe the person who has the snake is on a different line talking to somebody else. And this woman has accidentally been transferred by 911 to me. So I don't want to just dismiss what she's saying and hang up on her. I want to make sure that if this lady's in trouble, let me get her back to 911 dispatchers who can help her. And she's just screaming, there's a cheater, a cheater, a cheater. And I'm like, ma'am, is this a domestic disturbance? Is it your husband? He's cheated on you? Where is he? She goes, it's in my backyard, this cheater. She said, can you come catch it? Well, now I know it can't be her husband. As the conversation goes on, I do get her calmed down. She's saying cheater, and she means cheetah, the big cat from Africa, is in her backyard. And she's claiming it escaped from the zoo. And there's a cheater in her backyard. So did I go catch the cheetah? I did not. Was it ever spotted again? I'm sure it wasn't, because we never heard about it in the news. It's probably a bobcat. Anyway, we get people like that who are just over the top sometimes because they're seeing things they can't believe. They're seeing things that terrify them. Usually it's snakes. Sometimes it's cheaters, okay? But one of the most memorable ones for me, and I will never forget this as long as I live, I don't think, is I got a phone call in the middle of the night from 911. And they said, can we put you through to a woman who is terrified? There's a snake inside her home. She lives alone, single lady, and she needs your help. We don't go out and deal with snakes. I said, sure. She put us on the phone with this woman, and this was an older lady, and she lived alone. She still had a job. She was working, and she worked like the night shift. And she would get off work in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 a.m., something like that. And I'm on the phone with her, and she's relatively calm. You can tell she's scared, but she's not hysterical. I don't have to calm her down. She's not screaming, but you can hear panic in her voice. And she is telling me that she got home from work and she leaves the lights on and leaves the TV on and things like that just to deter burglars because she lives alone. She's scared, make it look like somebody's there. So she walks in, and then she flips on the living room light because that light was on. She had the TV on in the living room, but she turns the light on, and then she realizes there's a big snake wrapped around her television set. I mean, it's wrapped around her TV, freaking out. Like, okay, we get a lot of snakes out of houses. Some of them are in weird areas, but I've never removed one that was, constricting a television set. So I said, ma'am, I'm on the way to you. But honestly, you're a long way from me. It's going to take me an hour to get there. So I'm not going to be at your house till probably 4 a.m. So I know it's a long time to do this, but if you can sit there somewhere and watch the snake, that way if it crawls off your TV, you just tell me where it crawls. That's going to make my job much easier. Maybe I'll have a better chance of finding the snake and getting him out of your house. So she agrees to that. So she's in her kitchen watching the snake that's wrapped around the TV from her kitchen, okay? So an hour goes by, I get to her house. It's like 4 a.m. And I pull up in the driveway. And like I said, she lives alone. She's scared. I don't want to get shot. So I call her and said, ma'am, I'm here. I just pulled in your driveway and I'm about to come in your front door. Don't shoot me. She says, no. Don't come in the front door. If you come in the front door, you're going to be right next to the television set, and the snake is still on it, but he's moving. And it's moving, and if you come in, he may come off the TV and bite you, and I said, ma'am, I'm professional. I'm coming in the front door. Okay, I can handle the snake. So I come in the front door, and now she's already turned the TV off. The TV set is now off. The snake is still wrapped around the TV set. And I walk in the front door, and the TV is right here to my right, and the lady's over there in the kitchen, and I turn around to look, and I'm looking at the TV, and I look back at her, and I look back at the TV, and she says, well, are you going to catch it? I said, well, do you still see it? She said, yeah, it's wrapped around the TV. See how it's moving? I said, yeah. I said, this right here is this snake here, this right here? She said, yeah. Then I felt really, really bad for this lady. I felt so bad because I'm trying to figure out, how do I tell her without making her feel like an idiot that what's happened here is she had her TV on. She had the light in the living room turned off. And when she came in from work at 2:30 or 3 a.m., whenever it was, she flicked on the light in her living room. That activated the ceiling fan, which she had not dusted. A huge, long piece of dust, as long as a fan blade, comes off the ceiling fan and blows with the breeze of the fan toward the television set. And because the television set at this time was on, the static from the TV screen attracted the dust, and it clung all the way across the TV screen. So even now the she's been turned off, the fan's still going, and the wind is making the long string of dust move with the breeze. So I dusted off her TV, and I went home. Okay. Yeah. So, I charged to go out there. And I felt bad charging this woman to go out there. But I still charged her because now I'm going to get home at 5 a.m. because she thought a piece of dust was a snake that was going to hurt her. Anyway, as we go through these, some of these are actual animals instead of, a cheater, instead of, a dust snake. Some of these are actual animals. So one, and I don't mean to pick on women. I know that these first 1, 2, 3 stories have been about women. There's some men on here too. So hang on. There just has to be a lot of women that call me about snakes. So I get a call from a lady who panicking on the phone. This happens a lot. And she's screaming on the phone, and she's worried that the snake that's in her yard is about to kill her little dog. I don't remember what kind of dog she had. And I think she had 2 little dogs, and then her 2 little dogs are in the front yard, and there's a big snake in the front yard, and the dogs have kind of surrounded the snake, and they're barking at the snake. And she wants me to get there and get the snake because she's calling her dogs, and they're not coming because they're keying in on the snake. They're barking, they're growling, and she's afraid it's going to kill them. And this is a big snake, apparently, big enough to kill a little dog. At least that's what she's telling me. So I said, yeah, I'm probably 15 minutes away from you. I'm on the way, so I'm driving there, and I'm on the phone with her as we're driving, and you can hear her yelling out the door to her dogs, trying to call her dogs up away from the snake. Well, once I get about 5 minutes out, now she gets really upset because now she's saying that the snake is striking at the dogs. The snake has then got agitated. It is striking at the dogs, And if the dogs get close enough, they're going to get bit. You know, whether this is a constrictor that's going to squeeze the dogs and kill them, or a venomous thing that's going to bite the dogs and inject them with venom and kill them. I don't know which one it is, but I don't want to get there late and have the lady's dogs, or at least one of her dogs, dead. So I'm speeding. I'm trying to get there as quick as I can. And about 5 minutes from the house, her whole temperament, demeanor, her voice, everything changes. And the whole temperature just kind of comes down, and all of a sudden she's very calm. And she says, "Sir, thank you for your time, but I don't need you to come out. Thank you." And she goes, "Hang up." I said, "No, don't hang up. Did the snake leave?" She said, "Not exactly, but sir, thank you very much. I don't need you to come out." I said, "Well, ma'am, you can't just hang up on me. What happened? Where'd the snake go?" And she said, "I'm so sorry, sir. It's a box turtle." Yeah. I mean, a box turtle, you know how box turtles don't get big. Box turtles are small turtles. How she confused this box turtle with a really big snake, how she confused a box turtle as striking at her dogs, I have no idea. The only thing I can think of, you know, when people's fears overtake reason and logic, you sometimes see things that are just not there, okay? All right, so we had, this one's about a man, okay? So I'll making fun of women here. So this one's about a man. So this man goes into the front yard of his apartment complex, and there is a tree in the front of his apartment, and there's a tree limb coming over his yard, and in the tree limb is a snake. And not just any snake. It is a highly venomous snake, and it is in strike position, and it's got that diamond or triangular shaped head, which he says that's how you know if they're venomous, which, you know, is not true. But anyway, and so he knows it's a venomous snake. So he calls 911, and 911 did not call me. They sent the fire department out for them to catch the snake. Well, they get there and they're like, "Yeah, we see that snake, and that is a venomous snake, and we're not going to go get him out of there. We're not climbing up in that tree, and we can use our fire hose to knock him out of the tree with a stream of water, but if we do that, he's going to fall right here amongst us, and there's no telling what can happen. Before we do that, we need to call Jason out here so he can be here with us when this happens, and then when it falls, he can handle the snake, and we'll just run to the fire truck or wherever we need to go to." So they call me, and they said, "You know, the fire department's on scene. There's a snake in the tree, and we know it's a viper of some kind because of the big diamond-shaped head." And I said, "Okay." And now this snake is not where we can reach it. This snake is probably 20 feet up in the tree, okay? So I can't use a hook and get this thing. He's way up in the tree. So, you know, if we get him out of the tree, they're going to have to hit him with the water hose and knock him out of the tree. That's the only way I know to do it. Unless we just wait on the snake and, you know, call him down to us or something, which is not going to work. So I get there, I pull up, the fire department's there. They got the hose has already been, taken off the truck. They got the big fire hose there. The firemen, they're in their gear, and there's people coming out of their apartments now. And there's a huge circle of people out here waiting to see what's going to happen. You know, how are they going to get this snake out of this tree and get him on the ground? Well, when I come out, I look up and I see the snake. And it was definitely a snake, and it was in strike position, and it had that diamond or triangular shaped head for sure. And it was also flicking his tongue. You could see him flicking his tongue. But the thing about him flicking his tongue is he just kept on flicking his tongue. He never stopped. His tongue was out the whole time and never went back in. Not once. And I told the fireman, I said, "Guys, come over here for a minute." I said, "That's a rubber snake." They said, No, we've seen it move." I said, "Well, if you saw it move, it's because the wind's blowing. That's a rubber snake." And I said, "As a matter of fact, I know which store it came from because I buy tons of rubber snakes. And, because I love snakes, even the rubber ones. I said, I can tell you which store that rubber snake came from. And I told them. And they did not believe any of this. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. You go ahead and you hit it with the fire hose. And when it falls, y'all can pay me to pick up that rubber snake. They did. And when I picked it up, it was a rubber snake that some kid was playing with and flung it up in a tree, and it landed perfectly on the top of that limb where it looked like it was pointing down, looking at the people coming out of the apartment complex. But it was a rubber snake from the dollar store. Not even an expensive snake, not even an expensive rubber snake. It was a dollar store toy snake that the fire department, I'm not going to tell you which county it was, okay? I don't want to embarrass them, but that fire department doesn't need to be removing snakes. Anyway, not with a water hose. All right, so I got two stories real quick about rattlesnakes. Now, these two stories about rattlesnakes, the first one was really cool, and instead of making the person in all these stories look like the idiot, okay, the dumb one, I'm the dumb one in this one, all right? So I get a phone call on an evening around 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m., and it's just gotten dark, and a man calls and says, hey, I just caught a snake. I want to see if you want it, and I've got him in a bucket. And I said, well, because I always tell them, if you got a snake and it's native, just turn him loose. If you don't want him right at your house, take him a little ways away, not too far, and turn him loose. I don't need to come get the snake. He said, and he starts telling me about it. He said, this is a baby snake, and it's a rattlesnake. I said, well, sir, the reason I say that is because we have rattlesnakes here where I live, but there's a lot of, most of the snake calls we get are not rattlesnakes. Most of the snake calls that we get are snakes that will shake their tail, okay? They don't have a rattle. They're harmless. Rat snakes, king snakes, even copperheads and cottonmouths do it, but they'll shake their tail. And if they're in dry leaves or dry grass or their tail's hitting the ground because they're shaking so fast, it'll make a sound that people think they've just found a rattlesnake. So I'm telling the guy, I said, well, can you send me a photo? He's like, no, my cell phone doesn't pick up good out here. I'm on my house phone. And I said, well, sir, it could be a rattlesnake, but it may not be. It may just be a rat snake or something else, He said, oh, and it's an albino. This thing's got like orange and stuff on it. I said, oh, okay, now I know what you're calling about. What you've caught is a corn snake. A corn snake is basically a type of rat snake, and they're very beautiful. They come in, reds and oranges and blacks on. They're a really pretty snake, and they will shake their tail, vibrate it really quick, and it'll hit against the bucket that he's caught it in. It'll make a sound that he can mistake for a rattlesnake. So I'm explaining to him, sir, I think what you've caught is a rattlesnake. You tell me it's orange, okay? It's orange, and it has a rattle, and it's a baby. I'm pretty sure you caught a corn snake. He said, no, sir, I haven't caught a corn snake. It's an albino, and I think it's a rattlesnake. I said, well, we know that's not what it is, but I'll come there, get the snake, and I'll explain to you what you've caught. Corn snake, right? So I drive there, and he says, it's out in my barn. So we go out in his barn, it's in this little bucket. I look in the bucket, and in the bucket is a little tiny baby albino timber rattlesnake. And I'm like speechless. And he says, because I'm like, I want to take this snake with me so bad, So he said, well, you want it? I said, yeah, I guess I'll take it. And you're right, it is a rattlesnake, not a corn snake. You know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I take the snake and peel out of his driveway so quick. I'm like, I hope he doesn't change his mind and give me the snake. And I ended up having that snake for many, many, many years. 13, 14, 15 years or more until it finally passed away. Don't know what happened to it, but awesome snake. And so that was our first albino timber rattlesnake. We have videos on our YouTube channel about that snake and other albino timber since then, but really cool snake. Now, staying on the theme of rattlesnakes, I got a call from a woman, and the woman in this story, she didn't do anything wrong. She's actually, this lady was pretty smart to have called me for this rattlesnake. Lady calls and she says, hey, I need to get a second opinion. I want to see if I can get a price from you. How much would you charge me to go into my attic and remove all the rattlesnakes that are in my attic? I said, well, ma'am, I'm not going to do that because I can already tell you, you don't have any rattlesnakes in your attic. You might have rat snakes in your attic, but you don't have any rattlesnakes in your attic. She goes, no, I do. I actually have a photo of the rattlesnakes in my attic. I said, well, did you take the picture? She said, no. Here's what happened. She says, I had squirrels getting in my attic, okay? So I call a pest control company to come out here and figure out how to get rid of the squirrels and fix my attic where the squirrels could not get back inside my attic. And when the guy's up in my attic, he comes back down pretty quick and says, ma'am, listen, I can help you with the squirrels, but not until you get the snake situation taken care of because I'm afraid of snakes. I don't do snakes, so you got to handle that, and I can help you. She said, well, snakes? She said, you've got rattlesnakes up there. And he showed me a photo on his digital camera of a rattlesnake he took, and you can see in several pictures it's crawling away from him and goes under some rafters into the insulation in my attic. And I said, man, this is the first I've ever heard of this. And she said, well, I asked him, who should I call about dealing with this rattlesnake? And so he happened to have a business card of some other company, and he gives me that business card. So I called them, and they sent somebody out right away, and they went up into the attic, and they too saw the rattlesnakes and also took photos of it. And they told me what my problem was. They said, the problem that you have, ma'am, is that these rattlesnakes are actually climbing up your gutters. The type of gutters you have is allowing rattlesnakes that are in these woods around your house to climb up the gutters and get into your attic, and they're all up there in your attic. And they've got photos of it. And they said the only thing that we can do is we can go up there and we can search your attic and remove as many rattlesnakes as we can find. Hopefully we can find all of them. But then we're going to need to tear your gutters off and put different gutters that are snake-proof gutters that they can't do this again. Because we don't want to remove these rattlesnakes. You keep these same gutters and you just have the same problem next month. So they quote her, because she's got a big house. It's a 2-story house, really big house. They quote her somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,500 to $6,000, $5,000 to $6,000 to remove the rattlesnakes, rip off the old gutters, replace it with the snake-proof gutters. So she's telling me this, and she's like, so I want to see how much you'll charge to do this, because I don't want to pay them $6,000 to do this. How much would you charge? I said, well, first of all, can you send me the photo? I want to see I want to see this rattlesnake. She sends me the picture, and I said, ma'am, you're right. I was wrong. I did not expect there to be a rattlesnake in your attic. Never seen this before till today. This is the first. That's definitely a rattlesnake. I said, but I do have some good news about this rattlesnake. She said, what is it? I said, well, this rattlesnake in particular is not native to Georgia. It is not even native to the United States. This particular rattlesnake appears to be native to China. It's rubber. She said, what? I said, this is not a real snake. It's a rubber toy rattlesnake. She said, well, how do you know that? I said, ma'am, I've got a bunch of rattlesnakes, live ones, all different kinds of rattlesnakes. I know the difference in a live rattlesnake and a rubber rattlesnake, and I promise you this is a rubber, fake, toy rattlesnake. She was very upset. Not at me, at them. So I go to her house, I meet with her. I go into the attic, I take the photos, and I match up in her attic where the photos were taken. There's no rubber rattlesnake there now. And we even pulled up online a picture of the rattlesnake that's in her photos and showed her where you can purchase the same rubber rattlesnake that matches what's in these pictures they gave you. And I said, do you want to get these people back? She said, yes, I want to get them back. I want to kill them. I said, we're not going to kill them, but we can get them back, okay? So we called an Atlanta area news station here in Georgia and told them the situation. Well, they came out and they set up hidden cameras in the attic. And me and my dad go to the house, and me and my dad hide in the garage. Well, they call the company out to inspect it again to get ready to do the work, and they go up in the attic, and we get them on film, on camera, with their rubber rattlesnake. They have a little duffel bag, and they pull the rubber rattlesnake out to lay it down to get more photos of it as if it's moving around the attic, okay? We got that. We got footage of that. So when they come back downstairs, as they're walking back to their service van, which is parked in the driveway, at that moment we decided we'd hit the button on the garage door, let up the garage door, and my dad and I are standing there holding a live 6-foot rattlesnake. And they turned to see us, and all we said was, we just wanted to show the difference in a real rattlesnake versus a rubber rattlesnake. And the news cameras are there, and the two guys take off running, either from the camera or the snake, one of the two. And they run to their van, and the cameraman follows them and then gets a photo of them throwing the duffel back in, and the rubber rattlesnake falls out in their van. And that news station won some type of award for that story. But the weird thing was, for many, many years after that, that company was still in business. And as far as I know, they're still in business today, probably scamming a lot of people. Yeah. So glad the lady called me. I'm glad she did not go out and decide to pay almost $6,000 for snake-proof gutters, which don't even exist. You're not going to have a rattlesnake on your attic. If you have a rattlesnake in your attic, it's because somebody put the rattlesnake in your attic, okay? It's not going to crawl up in your attic. You know, rat snakes get into attics all the time. Rat snakes are, like I said, are good climbers. They're good at climbing structures. And when a rat snake goes into your attic, he's not going to live in your attic. He goes into your attic for a very short period of time, usually to maybe find mice or squirrels or even flying squirrels or even bats. I've been in attics where there's bats, and I've actually watched rat snakes in attics eating people's bats. Before I'd remove the snake, I let him finish his bat meal first. And once the snake eats his meal, then he leaves. He doesn't want to stay in the attic. Now, sometimes they will shed their skin and leave that in the attic. So when you go in the attic, you find this big snake skin, and you're thinking, oh, man, I've got snakes in my attic. And you might, but you probably don't. The snake's probably long gone. But if you had a snake skin there, and even if the snake's gone, another one may show up at some point in the future. So, but I've only ever seen rat snakes in attics. I've never seen any other species of snake in an attic but a rat snake. Now, speaking of going out catching snakes, I got a call on a Sunday morning, pretty early before church starts, and it was a man who was very upset. You know, most people who call me are upset, okay, because they have a snake. They're not looking to deal with the snake right now, and so they're upset. So somebody calls me about a snake, and they said, sir, I need you to come remove a snake. I said, well, sir, I can't. I said, I'm actually out of town. I just happened to answer your call, but I'm not even in town today. So it doesn't matter what kind of snake, even if it's an albino rattlesnake, I can't even come get it because I'm in a different state. I can't come. I'm really sorry. He said, I cannot accept that answer. I don't care what you have to do. You have to come here right now and get this snake. I said, sir, I can't. He said, sir, listen to me. He said, this is a church. It is Sunday morning. We're about to start church, and this snake has to go. So he told me the details of the snake, okay? And I'm like, you know what I can do? I have an idea. I'll call my mama. I'll call my mom because I've put her through a lot over the years, and she's endured it all. If she can handle me, she can handle a snake. So I called my mom, and who is also getting dressed for church at the moment. I said, Mama, what you doing? I'm getting ready to go to church. I said, well, that's great. That's perfect. I need you to go to a different church this morning that's actually not too far from you. She said, what? I said, yeah. I said, the pastor of a church just called me. He's all upset because they have a snake in their building, and I'm pretty sure it's a rat snake. And I just need you to go catch it because he knows that if people get there and see a snake in the church building just loose, they're going to freak out. You have to go catch this for this church. She's like, yeah, I can catch a rat snake. That's fine. Give me the address and I'll head right over there right now before I go to church. So she's all dressed for church, and she drives to a church to get a snake. I did not give her all the details because I knew she would not go. So I left some of the details out. I'm like, you know what? She can just find out the details when she gets to the church. The detail I did not tell her was that this rat snake was in the men's bathroom of the church and was currently hiding in the toilet. And so, now that my mom's there, it's going to be much harder for her not to catch this thing and just leave these people with their snake than if I had told her on the phone that she just wouldn't have gone. But now that she's there, she's like, oh, now I got to do it, So her plan, what she did is she got a plastic grocery bag, and she put her hand in this little tiny plastic grocery bag, and she reached into the toilet bowl, down into the water, grabbed this rat snake and pulled him out of the water, and then carried him to the sink and was able to wash off the toilet water and put him in a container. And then she scrubbed her hands multiple times with hot water and soap over and over again, and then called me. And she was the one that was the most upset that day, even more than the pastor, because I didn't tell her the snake was in the toilet. But the good thing is she got the snake, and the people going to the church, they did not know there was ever a snake in the church before they got there. Now, you're probably asking yourself, wait, what? Snakes get into toilets? Wait, hang on a minute. New fear just unlocked if you're a person who doesn't like snakes. So, yes, snakes get into toilets. It's happened more than one time. Now, how do they get into toilets? Well, they're not coming up through the septic lines. They're not doing that, okay? Now, some toilets have a vent. That's a little pipe that goes up on the roof and kind of sticks up above the roof, and it's a small pipe, and that could give them access. But I would venture to say I don't think a snake has ever or would ever crawl up, find a little hole, and go down into that pipe. I don't think that's going to happen, even with a rat snake. So all the snake calls I've been on where there was a snake inside of a toilet, basically what happened was most of them have come in underneath the sink in the bathroom. If you go and look at your sinks right now in your bathroom, in your kitchen, wherever, you'll notice, especially if you have a crawl space. If you're on a concrete slab, you won't see this, but if you have a crawl space where you can go under the building, under your house, they'll drill a hole in the floor, okay? Then they put the piping through the hole. A lot of times they don't seal the hole around the pipe, so you got a hole with a pipe going into it with a gap around the pipe, which snakes can come up the hole next to the pipe and into the bathroom, into the kitchen. We see this all the time. Once a snake gets in the bathroom, especially rat snakes, because they're good climbers and they can climb up onto a toilet, they're climbing, just looking around, trying to see, where's food? How do I get out of here? They find the toilet and like, oh man, I just happen to be really thirsty. And they climb in the toilet to drink. And snakes, even in captivity, will often, when we keep snakes in captivity, we make sure to give them a water bowl that they can fit their entire body in, because snakes like to get into water and soak in it. It's really good for them. They do this a lot right before they shed their skin, helps their skin come off easily when they shed it. So the snake found this toilet full of water and got in there and just took a nice soak. That's all it was. So hopefully we did get that out. But that's how snakes get into toilets, at least the ones that I've always seen. And sometimes they're hard to get out of there because I don't like reaching my hand in the toilet. I don't do that. But so I'm saving the best story for last. At least it's one of my favorite stories that we had to come up with some problem solving. But before I get to my last story, we're going to transition here, talk about alligators. You know, I love gators. There's gator pictures and gators back here behind me. I love alligators. I own several alligators. I'm an alligator agent. I'm a nuisance wildlife controller, so I go catch nuisance gators that are under 4 feet and remove them. And my alligator agent license allows me to catch alligators that are over 4 feet and relocate those. So I get a lot of alligator calls to go and trap and relocate alligators that show up in the areas they're not supposed to be. However, I also do tons of educational programs and shows. So this one particular Saturday morning, I am doing a fall festival event for a civic club. They're raising money, and I'm there doing the entertainment. I'm on the stage doing a snake show, and we're getting ready to set up to start the event. And 911 calls and says, we have a report of an alligator on the interstate. Now, depending on which interstate and which state you're talking about, that's not abnormal, but where they're telling me this is in just south of Metro Atlanta, an hour outside of the alligator's natural range. Gators should not be where she's telling me this gator is located. So I said, so you have a report of an alligator on the interstate. I said, who'd you hear this from? This is the 911 dispatcher I'm talking to. She says, well, it was just a passerby on the interstate, saw it and called 911, reported it. I said, oh, okay. What is it? I'm thinking, what is it a tire, a blown out tire laying there, an off-road tire with some grips on it, you know, some mud grips that it looks like an alligator, you know? It could be. Truck drivers even, call those tire treads on the road that are blown out tires. They'll call them gators or alligators sometimes. So maybe that's what this is. So I said, well, man, can you get a deputy or, somebody out there instead of just an anonymous caller that can verify it before I try to get somebody over? Because I can't go. I'm at a festival, but I can get somebody there, possibly. But I want to. I don't want to send them on a wild goose chase. I don't want to send them on a wild alligator chase. That's not even a gator. Let's verify it's an alligator. So she says yes. So a few minutes go by. She calls back. She says, okay, we have a Georgia State trooper who is on scene, and he has verified that it is an alligator and it is very much alive. It is on the side of the interstate. I said, well, that's good enough for me. So my dad would always go to these events with me. Except for this day, he did not go because he didn't feel well. And he's like, you know what? I don't feel good. I'm just going to stay here and rest today and not go. I said, okay. So I call him, even though I know he doesn't feel good. I said, hey, that you didn't go with me today. I said, how do you feel? He goes, I just don't feel good. I said, well, that's too bad because there's an alligator on the interstate that I wish I had somebody to catch this thing, but I can't go. He goes, an alligator on the interstate? I mean, I'm not feeling that bad. I could go do that. I said, you can go catch an alligator, but you can't hang out with me at this event and help run this event. He said, no, I can go catch an alligator, but I can't help it. So anyway, I give him the details, and he drives there. And like I said, this reported alligator is over an hour outside, north of the natural range of where alligators are supposed to be. So my dad gets there on scene, and after a few minutes of dealing with whatever was there, he calls me and says, well, I did catch something. I'm going to bring it by the festival and show it to you. So he shows up at the festival, opens his truck, and he pulls out a 7.5-foot American alligator. So it actually was a gator. And once he got to catch the gator, that made him feel a lot better. So he wasn't sick enough to catch gator, but he was too sick to go help me at this festival. But anyway, he caught the gator, problem solved. We relocated the gator off the interstate to a natural area a little bit further south. So hopefully he won't go back on interstates anymore. Now, staying with the alligator theme, I got my best story about an alligator capture in just a minute. Before I tell you that, I'll tell you one more. I got a call late one night about a nuisance gator that had to be removed. This gator was not in the place it needed to be, it needed to go. The problem was the next day I had shows booked. I had to go do, our venomous snake comedy stage show that we do, and I had it booked in 3 different cities for the next day. So I've already packed up all the animals. They're loaded in the vehicle, and I'm going to get up early the next morning to drive to the first city I'm going to do this presentation, right? But I'm already in the bed. I'm asleep, and they called about this gator, that we really need help with this gator. It's just in a bad spot. Can you please come get this thing? And I said, yeah, sure. Now, here's what I've learned, okay? If you ask somebody who has seen a snake or an alligator, how big is it? What do you think they're going to do? I've learned that whatever size they tell me it is, I can always divide by 2, and it gives me a pretty accurate estimate as to how big this animal actually is. So I asked the guy, how big's the gator? And he says, I've seen it myself. I'm pretty sure it's about 4 foot. It's not that big. Oh, okay. Is it really 4 foot or is it really 2 foot? Either way, 4 foot, even if it's 4 foot, that's not big, okay? I don't need to take my big truck and trailer, none of that. I can take my venom van that the snakes are packed up in, and I can go drive that. I can put a 4 foot alligator, worst case scenario, probably 2 foot. But I can put a 4 foot gator in the van. Not a big deal, okay? So I get there, and by this time, it is in the middle of the night. It is 2 to 3 a.m., something like that. So I go and I have to park my van, and then I have to walk quite a long ways because you can't drive to where the gator was. And he was at an industrial complex where there's like 400 employees working. But where he was, you couldn't drive a vehicle to where he was. So I walk over there, and then I see the gator, and this gator was about 4 foot long if you measured not all of his tail, okay? This gator ended up being, this is the first time it's ever, no one has ever under-exaggerated an animal. They always, over-exaggerate. This guy under-exaggerated by a lot. It was not 4 foot. It was bigger. It was not 5 foot. It was not 6. It was not 7. It was not 8. It was not 9 foot. It was not, this alligator was 11 foot 2 inches long. I've shown up to get a 4 foot gator, which I can just pick up easily and carry to my van and put him in the passenger seat next to me taped up, okay? An 11 foot plus gator, I can't do that with. But I'm here now and got to deal with it. So where the gator is, now there's no one to help me. I don't have any help. The employees here, they're not going to do anything. They're terrified. I didn't bring any help. So I'm going to deal with this 11 foot plus alligator by myself. This thing weighs hundreds of pounds. And I not only have to get him taped up without dying, okay, without losing an arm, I have to now, once I get him taped up, transport him back to my vehicle on foot, which took me I don't know, over 2 hours to do this capture, which shouldn't have taken that long. Anyway, by the time I get this gator back to the van, I've already had to jump on the gator, wrestle him, and and get his head and get tape on his head and blindfold him and get his legs secured and get him all secured where I can get him in my vehicle to go release him somewhere. Well, in the very back of the van is all my snakes, and then in the middle part of the van where the side door is, where there's a big open area, I'm like, I think he could fit there. So I put him in there in the side sliding door of the van, shut the door, and then I get in the front seat. So I'm sitting in the front seat, and this 11-foot gator is sitting right here behind me. Well, now I'm looking, okay, I know where I have to go release the gator, but I'm looking at what time it is. I'm like, I'm going to have time. I've got to go do these 3 shows in 3 different cities. He's going to have to go with me. There's nothing else to do. So I drive to the first city, and It wasn't time to go in yet. Now, mind you, I have been awake all night long. I've been awake. I've had no sleep. And now I have to go be lively and peppy and do a show, okay? So I had a little bit of time to kill. I said, man, if I could just close my eyes and just rest for 30 minutes, I would feel so much better. And I've slept in this van a few times if that's happened, with my crazy schedule. This was the first time I've ever had to get over there in the back and lay down next to a wild 11-foot, 2-inch alligator. But he's taped up, so, it's fine. Anyway, I take a nap, and now it's time to get up, and I'm still groggy. This was, you ever had one of those naps that make you feel worse? You shouldn't have taken a nap because now I feel even more out of it. So I get up and I go into the place, and the person who has booked me to be there to do this show, I go into the lobby of this building, into the foyer, and this woman walks up to me. She's booked me to be there, and I've never met her. I've talked to her on the phone, never met her before. And I reach out to shake her hand, to introduce myself. I'm Jason. As I do that, I realize you cannot see my shoes because they're covered in mud that I've just tracked into the foyer of this building. And my clothes, I look down and I realize that there's blood on my clothes, not from me, not from the alligator. You know what it's from? See, this alligator is not in a zoo. He's living in the swamp, okay? What do you think lives in the swamp with alligators? Leeches. Yeah, there are leeches on the gator, and when you're in the middle of catching a gator, you can't say, oh, hang on a minute, gator, let me move this leech. No, you got to jump on the gator. And now if the leech is like really full of blood, and anyway, sometimes they pop and there's blood, and it was horrible. I've got leech blood on my clothes. I didn't know this. I'm sleeping in the van next to an alligator with leech blood on my clothes, and now I'm in the foyer meeting this woman who I'm about to do a reptile show for. So I just said, well, man, here's why I'm so dirty, okay? You're getting the real deal today. I'm a real reptile guy, okay? This is the real deal. So anyway, I did the show, explained to the audience that, why it's happened the way it's happened, and was able to go do 3 shows, halfway delirious and tired, then go release the gator, then go home and take 2 showers and a bath and go to bed, okay? And get all the leech blood off of me, okay? So anyway, we're almost done. Now, it's time for the last story. The last call that I got. This was a really good call I want to tell you about. And when I was thinking of doing this podcast episode number 6, I thought that would be a good one to tell. So this is the one I've been waiting to tell you. And it involves an alligator. So I got a call for an alligator. Guess where it is? On the interstate, blocking traffic, okay? The local sheriff's department has already been called out. They've got there, and the sheriff's deputy was going to try to hit his air horn, hit his siren, pull up close to the gator, blowing his horn to scare the gator off the road, right? That doesn't work. The gator rips off half of the bumper and punctures the deputy's front tire on his cruiser. To be expected, okay? So now he is, his car's on the side of the road. He's got to change his tire. And so he's called the fire department. Y'all come out here with your truck and maybe get your fire hose and just blast this gator off the road into the ditch. And then maybe he'll crawl away and go into the woods and go into the river and swim away. So the fire department comes out. They block off this part of the interstate. They get their fire hoses out and start blasting this gator with the fire hose water to get him off the interstate. Does not work. The gator is defiant, and he sits there and won't go anywhere. So they're like, oh, what do we do? So then they say, call Jason. So they call me. Again, this can't be, a Tuesday at 2 p.m. It has to be in the middle of the night. The middle of the night, they call me, wake me up. Hey, we need your help. There's a gator on the interstate blocking traffic, and the deputy can't get him off. He's already torn up the car. The fire department can't hose him off the road. That's not working. Can you come catch this gator, remove him, and take him wherever he needs to go? I said, sure. So I get in my truck because I'm like, you know what? I ain't taking any chances. Maybe it's a big gator. I'll have my truck, my F-350, It's got an 8-foot bed on the back. We can put some big gators on this truck. So I'm driving down the interstate, and I'm about 30, 35, 40 minutes from my house. I'm about halfway to where I've got to go. As I'm driving down the interstate, it's the middle of the night. All of a sudden, the lights on my truck go out. My dash goes blank. My truck cuts off, and I just roll to a stop on the side of the interstate. Dead. The truck is dead. I have to call a tow truck to then get my truck and drive it to the nearest dealership and drop it off, which happens to be just one exit away from where I broke down. It's still the middle of the night. I've already told them, hey, guys, I'm sorry. Here's what happened. I broke down. I can't help you. You got to figure this out yourself. I can't come. So I call a friend of mine, and I said, hey, can you come down here and pick me up? My truck just broke down. And I'm at a dealership. This is the middle of the night. The dealership is closed. Nobody's here. And I said, can you just come pick me up and give me the house? They said, oh, yeah, fine. So he comes and picks me up, and we get in this car, and we're driving back home. And he says, man, why are you out in the middle of the night? Where are you going? I said, well, there's an alligator down here on the interstate. And, he messed up the sheriff's deputy's car. The fire department couldn't hose him off the road, and he's blocking traffic. They wanted me to come catch him and remove him. They said, oh, well, did you get him? I said, well, no, I never made it. My truck broke down. He said, well, what did they do? I said, I don't know what they did. I mean, I can't help them. And I told them that they're on their own. He said, well, I'd kind of like to see you do it. I said, I mean, you want to go do it? He said, hey, I'd like to. I said, well, I don't want to put you out. It's a 30-minute drive. He said, I'd really like to go do it. I said, all right, turn around. So I call him and say, hey, good news for y'all. I'm on the way. I'll be there in about 30 minutes. They're like, great. We don't know what to do. So we get there, and now the local newspaper is there. It's still nighttime. It's still in the middle of the night. And they're taking photos of the gator, and the sheriff's department's there, the fire department's there, and a lot of commotion, and the gator's there. And I don't know exactly how big he is at this moment because I haven't caught him to measure him yet. But after I caught him, I measured him, and he was somewhere over, I want to say 9 foot. He's over 9 foot long. A decent sized gator for sure. I jumped on the gator. I secure the gator. I tape his jaws up. I secure his legs, get him all secure, so we can transport him to go release him somewhere. And then it dawned on me as soon as it dawned on everybody realized it, I think, at the same time. We were not in my truck. We were driving my friend's 2-door Chevy Impala. So the question is, can you put a 9-foot plus alligator inside a 2-door Chevy Impala with 2 adult men? The answer is yes. How did we do it? What we figured out was we raised the trunk up, and the back seat, we folded the back of the back seats forward, laid them down, and we slid the gator in that way. And his head went all the way to the front and rested on the middle console in between the driver and passenger, me and my friend. And his tail extended all the way into the trunk. We had to fold his tail around a little to get the trunk, so we don't want his tail hanging out the trunk. So we had to fold the tail around a little bit to get the trunk shut. And we drove home with the gator. And the hard part was, I still had to kind of hold the gator's head because the side of the gator's head is just bone. It's like a sledgehammer. Imagine somebody hitting you with a sledgehammer. That's like how it feels to get hit with a gator thrashing his head side to side, especially when he's over 9 foot long. It can hurt really bad. So I didn't want him to hit the steering wheel and us go into the ditch or, hit, break my femur or something. So I'm having to hold the gator's head still for the, hour drive home to where he took me to my house. We unloaded the gator into an overnight enclosure because I'm exhausted at this point. And then the next day, I got my other vehicle, loaded the gator up, took him, and got him released. So We've had some really crazy calls. Now, these are just some of the calls that I've gotten over the years. And as soon as I end today's podcast, I'm sure I'm going to think of many, many more that I've gotten over the years. But, as I think about these stories and all these really cool stories that I've done, and, I love snakes, I love alligators, I love all these things. And I just think that the job that I've got is an amazing job. I love what I do. I'm still amazed that I get to go do this for a living. And I remember when I was a kid listening to some wonderful storytellers. These people were my mom and dad and my mom's mom and dad, my grandparents. So my grandmother, we called her Nanny. My grandfather, we called him Papa. And then my mom and dad. And they would tell me stories of things that had happened to them in their life. And it was just amazing things. And I just remember as a kid thinking, man, I'm never going to have an exciting life like these people have lived. I'm never going to have these stories. And so I just decided as a kid, I want to one day have really cool stories to tell people. In order to do that, you have to say yes to opportunities when they come their way. And it's really easy to say no to opportunities when they come their way because some opportunities can look like work. Some opportunities are really terrifying because if it doesn't work out, well, what then? My mom often says, she'll say all the time that when I go and tell her, here's what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this thing. And she'll say, well, okay, what if it doesn't work out? What is your plan B? And I tell her, there's no plan B. This is the plan. This is what I'm going to do. And there's been times in my life where I've done those things and those things have not worked out. But that's okay. The times they don't work out, it's okay. It's good. You know why? Because I learned from it. All right. But I read something the other day, and I've got part of it here I want to read to you. Then a couple of things I want to add to it. But I read this the other day, and this just reminded me of exactly what I'm telling you now. And I keep a lot of notes on my phone. I have an app on my phone where I take notes down, and I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of notes on my phone from all different kinds of things that I'll take notes about. And this is one thing that I keep that I read from time to time just to remind myself of not waiting for your life to begin, which is exactly what I think so many people do. It's not that I'm special. It's not that I'm have this extra super crazy ability to do things with snakes and alligators. And because the reason I say that is so many people call me, hey, how can I do what you do? Now, if you don't like snakes, you don't want to do what I do, okay? But if you're a person who loves snakes, who loves animals, who loves reptiles, I get calls from those people who say all the time, I wish I could have your job. How can I start doing part of what you do? How do I do this? And it's not, like I said, not that I'm just this, really smart person or I'm just really good at this or that. It's that I don't shy away from opportunities when they're presented to me. And that's what a lot of people do. So many people are sitting around waiting on their life to begin, and their life just ends up passing them by. And I never wanted that to be me. So this thing, I'll read part of this to you. I'm going to read it because it's pretty long. I'm not going to read it all to you, but I just want to share a couple of things here. This says, we convince ourselves that life will be better after we get married, maybe after you have kids. Then when you do have kids, you get frustrated that the kids are not old enough yet. When they get older, things will be better then. Or then they do get older, and they become teenagers, and you're like, well, man, now I've got to deal with teenagers, which is exactly what I'm dealing with right now. But I love my teenagers. I've got 2 teenage daughters. And you're thinking, well, when they're not teenagers and they're out of this stage they're in, and they're out of the house, then things will be better. Then life will begin and things will be good. Then you're not really happy with yourself because, There's always something that you have to get through, always something you have to get past first. If you can get past this one thing, maybe, when your spouse or your partner or your friend, once they get their act together, then things will be better. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be able to find happiness. Or maybe your car is falling apart and you're scared to drive your car and you need a new vehicle. And you're like, okay, if I can just get to the point financially where I can get me a new vehicle, then things will be better. And then I can, be happy. Then I'll find happiness and I'll live my life and things will be so much better. Or there's a million things that you can think of to wait on for your life to be better. But what I figured out is your life always has been and always will be filled with challenges, okay? And you have to understand this, and then once you understand that, decide that there's nothing going on in your life that should prevent you from finding happiness, okay? Don't wait to find happiness. Don't wait for this to happen or that to happen or this to be over with or this thing to come for your happiness to then find you. You have to find your own happiness, even in the middle of what you're going through. There's a quote from a guy. I don't know who this is exactly, but his name is Alfred Salza. This is what he said. He said, "For a long time, it seemed to me that life was just about to begin. Real life. But there was always some obstacle in the way, something that had to be gotten through first, like some unfinished business. Time still had to be served or a debt still had to be paid. And then life would begin." And then he goes on to say, "At last it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life." Because like I said, you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have, as soon as one problem's over, another one's going to pop up. So if you're waiting on things to be like you think they should be before you decide to be happy or you decide for your life to begin, it's going to pass you by. So you got to stop waiting until you lose weight or stop waiting until you gain weight. Who wants to gain weight? I don't know who you people are, but stop waiting until you have kids, until you get married, until you get divorced, until you get a new job, until you quit this job, until next week or next month or next year or next summer or when spring gets here. You can't wait on these things to come to your life or to move out of your life until you find happiness. Another saying says, to work like you don't need money and to love like you've never been hurt. And then it says to dance like nobody's watching. Now, I agree with those things, except for the last one. I'm not going to be dancing because if I dance, people are definitely going to be watching, okay? So I ain't going to be doing that one. But what I want to leave you guys with is what are you waiting for? I don't know how you see your life and how you want your life to be or end up. But everybody has a vision of where they see themselves and where they want their life to one day be. And it's good to have goals, and you have to work toward goals. And sometimes you have to wait on the correct timing for certain things. I understand that. But so many times people miss out on things that are put right in front of them because it doesn't look exactly how they pictured it to be. And fear makes them miss out. So don't be fearful. What does the Bible say? God did not give us a spirit of fear, okay? So don't be fearful. Go for what you need to go for. Say yes to opportunities. Sometimes these opportunities will not work out, but the ones that don't work out, those are the ones you learn the most from. Don't wait on the right time for everything. Some things, of course, you have to wait on the right time, okay? But not everything. Time is not waiting on you. Why are you waiting on it? Last thing I want to tell you, there's two statements I want to read you guys. And I want you to decide which one of these statements that you believe is true, okay? Statement number one is this. It says, life will give you what you accept. Okay? Life will give you what you accept. Do you believe that statement is true, or do you believe this statement is true? The other statement is this: life will give you what you fight for. Life will give you what you fight for. Now, whichever statement you believe is true, life will give you what you accept, or life will give you what you fight for. Whichever one you believe is true, you're right. You're correct. And most people accept what life gives them, and that's all there is. And they don't fight for anything. So if you have a vision in your head of what you think your life should be like, you don't have to just accept things as they are. You can fight for stuff. You can fight for stuff, and you can accept opportunities, even if those opportunities are scary. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed episode number 6 of the Snakes Are Us TV podcast with me, Jason Clark. We'll do episode 7 coming up next week, God willing. Thank you all so much for joining me. And remember one thing, Jesus loves you, and so do I.